Filowitz. Oh, hi. Easton Beast, good morning. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Genus Brewing live stream. This is the live stream that we do every single Sunday morning. And for those of you who haven't tuned in before, the format goes, we talk about some Genus news or general beer news, things that are either going on here in the tap room or things that are going on in the beer world outside of Genus. Then we go into Beer of the Week, where we break down a style and talk about our favorite malt hops and yeasts to use in that style. And then we go into one or two discussion topics, depending on how much time we have and how much information we have to talk about on the topic. And then we go into some Q&A. So, and we kind of do Q&A throughout. And so if you got questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll try to answer them as they pop up. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some Genus Brewing news.
Genus Brewing news. We got a new seltzer on tap, Dragon Fruit. It is pink and delicious.
Yes, it is.
That is definitely something.
It's
something. You should drink.
It's pretty fun because it's got a combination of like citrusiness, but also with that almost passion fruity kind of like tropicalness. So it's got some fun flavors at play, and it goes really well with a dry, effervescent, seltzery body.
Definitely. Ascorb's video is up. We talked about that last week, but we're going to talk about it again.
So go watch it.
Definitely.
And we've gotten some fun comments on it. Most of them positive. Some of them being like, "You guys don't know what you're talking about." And to those, I say, okay.
Like, cool story, bro. What's your evidence? Like, besides the internet?
Yep.
How many times have you done it? Show us. I mean, honestly, like literally, if you want to say we're wrong about something, show us where you actually did it. You have the evidence for it. Come back, and then we'll test it out and make sure that it's actually accurate.
Yeah.
If you just want to say, I saw it on the internet, then watch us.
Brew Noob's tasting this week, and so we've got a video where Josh and Warren did a video, and they're doing a grain to glass. So really fun blueberry ale that they got to brew, and then Tim and I could just get to taste it and tell them how good or bad they did and what they might do to improve. And so hopefully a different angle from Genus Brewing, where you can kind of get an experience from someone who might be either on the same level as you, maybe less experienced, maybe more experienced, and then you can get to see some critiques instead of just watching us brew everything.
Yeah, they will definitely make some common mistakes that most new brewers will be making, and we'll be calling them out for it and saying they did a good job, at least on camera.
Yeah. Holiday Friendsgiving, that's today. So we're doing a little holiday staff and people related to staff kind of party. And that is today. And I made a brisket, and Josh also made a brisket, and they're the same brisket, and we're gonna deep fry it, Nashville hot style.
Nashville hot deep fried biscuit. We got some other delicious things coming in there. I smoked the spiral ham last night with some cherry glaze.
Nice.
Cherry bourbon glaze.
Oh, that might go pretty good with my pairing suggestion for ham.
I think we got some pork belly coming in.
Yeah.
Shrimp fried rice from Ryan because
he's Asian.
Because he is actually, and shrimp make him feel better about himself.
That's right, because they are the same as him.
Delicious.
Yeah, that's all I got for. Do you got anything else for Genus Brewing news or?
I did actually have a thought for this. Pertains a little bit to beer, but so since the world is like 70% water, but it's not carbonated, that would make the Earth flat, right? I think they got me with this argument. Like I cannot argue against that. It's flat.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless somebody gets out there with a whole bunch of CO2 and carbonates the ocean, which I would also like to see.
I mean, technically, I think we're kind of working on that.
Yeah, well, a little bit. It's absorbing more and more. That's for darn sure.
There's probably some level of CO2 in solution across the entire globe.
It's effervescent. Not quite flat, but definitely not carbonated.
I've seen some sea foam.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, I mean, like, I don't know. There's part of me that when you get those really big, like, sea foam crashes before storms where there's just feet and feet of foam, and that would be fun to play in.
Bubbles.
Kind of gross, but fun.
All right.
That's what showers are for.
That's right. I think that brings us on to our Beer of the Week. Bum, 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 Beer of the Week. Yeah. Today we're doing Scottish export style. There's a couple different things in the Scottish range, ranging from Scottish light, Scottish heavy, which really isn't that heavy. It's like, still maxes out at like 3.9% alcohol, to Scottish export, and then all the way up to Scottish wee heavy, which is the wee heaviest.
Is the wee heaviest.
But today we're talking about Scottish export, which is kind of the most, I would say, universally drinkable, at least for American palates, because we tend to not drink too many things under 4.5%, and we kind of stick in that 5 to 6%. So that's kind of where this lies.
Not Scottish pub beer, but what Americans think that would be, basically. A little bit stronger and, less sessionable at a higher alcohol, but still pretty easily sessionable. It's gonna be a delicious style of beer, 100%. All right, so all right, malt of the week, or no, wait, you put that way up top instead of the end. Weird. Overall impression. Actually, Yeast and the Beast has that good. Not full Scot, they're Scot-ish.
That's right,
and that's actually a good statement on that. What a lot of Americans think is a Scottish beer is a Scotch beer, which is in a little bit higher than what this is. Not quite the wee heavy range, but a little bit bigger than what this style is. Scottish.
Overall impressions is, for a Scottish export, a malt-focused, generally caramely beer with perhaps a few esters and occasionally butterscotch aftertaste. I personally steer clear of the butterscotch aftertaste because I ferment my Scotch ales on the cold side and then do a ramp at the end, or a VDK, not a VDK rest, but I guess in this case it would be.
It's kind of the same idea as a VDK rest, but not expressly for the VDKs.
Yeah.
So,
Damon, I do not off the top of my head know the height of my drip trays off the tap. We put that there by putting a growler under and making sure there was room, and we figured it out.
Also, get a life. Why are you trying to get advice on our live stream right now when you know you can come to outside hours? Be a better brewer.
That's right. Just show up. Come here and measure it right now.
Yeah. You can sit in the background. Well, it might improve the show, especially if you fall.
Realistically, all we did, it wasn't a standardized height. All we did was we stuck glasses under and growlers under, and we said, this looks like about as much room as I need.
Yeah, that was literally it. Yeah, because you are literally
You're
texting
sending us messages on the live stream.
I mean, I don't know what's hard to understand about that. We're doing a live stream right now.
That's going to be a really fun argument when people are listening on the podcast.
Yeah.
Just like, who are they arguing with randomly?
One of the guys, he's actually starting No Drought Brewing Company and comes to us for advice a lot. He just really has horrible timing about it right now. So, we're going to talk about it on live stream.
So we're going to make fun of him.
All right. Overall impression. I don't know if you got...
I didn't get to the hops part.
The hops part. Yeah, I like the butterscotch aftertaste on there, actually. It's not full caramel, and you shouldn't be putting caramel malts into this because you shouldn't be putting caramel malts into anything, but this is not a beer to put caramel malts in, dang it. Hops only to balance and support the malt. It's actually something really important to remember that hops don't really grow in Scotland very well. It is very, very moist and damp there, as well as much colder than what hops generally prefer. Not that you can't get them to grow, but it's just a lot harder. So at the time, the Scottish would have to buy hops from the English, and if you don't know how the Scottish feel about the English, you should. So they didn't do that and didn't put very many hops in, and that's a pretty big characteristic of this. There should only be enough to balance it out, and in fact, a lot of the times adding other herbs into it, like heather, wouldn't be inappropriate to achieve some of that bitterness without hops. The malt character can range from dry and grainy to rich, toasty, and caramely, but is never roasty, and especially never has a peat smoke character. This is beer, not whiskey. There's a difference.
That's right. So a lot of people kind of confuse that. They think Scotch, and they see Scotch ale or Scottish style beers, and they think Scotch. It's not true. There can be a subtle smokiness that comes from the yeast sometimes, but that's not the same kind of smokiness that you perceive. It's something you really, really got to try to pick out if you can taste it.
Also, Damon, I'm pretty confident I could deadlift more than you. I think by how much Peter can deadlift more than you, I'm pretty confident on that one.
Yeah, I can also probably bench more than you.
I mean, bench, maybe you got some pretty nice moves. You know, you got some muscle behind those, but at least deadlift.
Yeah, no, I can do both by a lot.
Anyway, that's a very important thing, is that peat character should not be in traditional Scottish beers. If you make a peated beer, you just made a smoked beer, and it needs to be in an entirely different category. Not that they aren't delicious, but that is not something that should be in this beer.
Appearance is going to be a pale copper to very dark brown, kind of like you expect most Scotch ales. They kind of range in that mid-red to kind of almost garnety red, but it can go dark with a little bit of subtle roast character. It can go into that darker kind of realm. But yeah, they can also sit on the lighter end of the spectrum. Actual statistics-wise, they sit between 13 and 22 SRM. So 13 is going to be kind of that bottom end of the orangey spectrum.
Yeah. And it should be very, very red in color, garnet in color when you're looking through it. Even if you do get some color from darker malts, you shouldn't be taking on any of the brown aspects of those malts.
No brown. We ain't going downtown to Browntown.
It says pale copper to very dark brown, and I don't agree with the very dark brown. It should be very dark red.
Yeah, I like to get that garnety. But a subtle amount of roast character is, allowable. So I can see how you can get there. We just don't do it.
We just don't do it. I mean, I would stay away from roast and a little bit more into the toast side. But yeah, anyway, aroma. Low to medium maltiness, often with flavors of toasted breadcrumbs, ladyfingers, and English biscuits. I think that would be cannibalism with ladyfingers.
Yeah.
They're actually very delicious desserts, and I enjoy this. You know, you're getting that biscuitiness in there. You're getting toasted bread. You're getting, like, the bread crust flavor without actually getting into roastiness for it.
I know ladyfingers is a cookie, but at the same time, my brain goes a completely different direction when I think of ladyfingers.
Yeah.
I'm like,
magic fingers?
It's not supposed to taste fishy.
Or cheesy.
It's low to medium caramel and butterscotch is allowable. Again, when we ferment low and then raise up for a kind of just finish out the beer, not a VDK rest, but usually it diminishes any butterscotchy from the potential diacetyl world, but it's allowable, and sometimes it's appropriate with all the extra esters and stuff that are going on. And Tim likes it.
Well, but I like the butterscotch more than the caramel. When you the sweetness, the caramely sweetness shouldn't be from caramel malts. It should be more from a process here, and you're not looking for an overly sweet sugar caramel flavor in there. Having a little bit more depth in the butterscotch is something I would rather see than it overloaded with caramel.
Tons of caramel malt. Yeah, we don't use any caramel malts in ours. We use a lot of caramel hybrids, but regardless. Speaking of malts, I picked Halcyon for our malts of the week. Surprise, surprise. For those of you who don't know, Halcyon, listen to every other podcast we've ever done. And for those of you who do, you already know. Let's go on to...
well, again, here in Aroma, peat smoke is inappropriate. I'm going to keep hitting it on that because we just don't. And we have a comment from Damon. American style versus true Scottish style. Man, there is no American style Scottish ale. There's a Scottish style Scottish ale. There's Americans who make it wrong.
If you put it in the smoked beer if you were to categorize it, if you put smoke in it, it's got to be in a smoked beer category, not in a Scotch ale category.
The rest of it is question. There was more smoke in American style. And again, there's no American style Scotch. There's a Scottish style Scotch. If there's smoke in it, it's a smoked beer, not a Scottish beer.
Pomme fruit is part of the fruitiness that they're saying in Aroma. Pomme fruit? I should know what
apple.
Apple.
Pomme literally is the French word for apple.
Pomme.
Fun fact of the week, what they call a potato is pomme de terre, which is apple of the earth.
Yeah. Fun faps with Fat Timothy. Nailed it.
You so nailed it. Flavor on there. Entirely malt focused, with flavors ranging from pale bready malt with caramel overtones to rich toasty malt with roasted accents, but never roasty, or a combination thereof. And this actually goes into a comment we have here. Daniel, I kind of like a little bit of roast and a wee heavy, but the problem is it goes too far after 1 ounce in a 5-gallon batch. And so that is absurd how much that comes through. And that comment in here with roasted accents but never roasty. You're never trying to hit the roasted taste column,
Yeah.
but you're trying to give impressions of roast.
Which is why we kind of disagreed back on the appearance with it going to a very dark brown, because dark brown usually suggests that roast character being pretty prominent. And so we like to see the garnet, and with maybe a roast accent that'll just enough roast to pop the red.
Yeah. Fruity esters are not required, but add depth, yet are never high. That was a weird sentence to read. Basically, it's trying to say there is a little bit of fruit, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, the palm flavor, that little bit of green apple that can be in there, very present in a lot of English, Scottish, Irish-styled beers in there. Don't overdo it. It shouldn't be huge and in your face, but having some of that fruity characters in there is really nice, as well as a little bit of fruitiness coming from some darker, more specialty roasted or malts. Yeah,
a lot of the fruitiness comes from the grains. Like if you're using Special B or Special X for a lot of your colorization, that's going to give you that dried date figgy kind of fruits. But that's different than fruit esters from the yeast, which is why we talked about fermenting this one on the colder side. Again, Scotch ale yeast can actually go strangely cold. I think the lowest it can ferment still pretty rapidly is like 58 degrees now, which is pretty low for most ale strains. I fermented it as low as 55 for a Scotch lager once and didn't really taste much like a Scotch at all, but it was a fun experiment. And I wouldn't ferment it too much over like 65, even though it says its range is probably up to like 68. Because at the warmer end, it does start to produce a lot of those Englishy esters, which kind of bring this into a different world of beer style. So you want to get a lot of fruity accents from your malts that you use. Special X is one of our favorites to use. And you want to ferment this a little bit on the cleaner side. So let's say 62, and then towards the end of fermentation, maybe bump it up to 68 to 70, just to make sure it finishes out.
Yeah. Let's see, where are we going on this? Hops. No to low hop flavor is allowed and should be of traditional English character. Again, Scottish didn't want to pay English taxes, and it makes sense because, you know, the British Isles history and stuff. So they didn't use very many hops in it, and this should not be a very hop forward beer, if a hoppy beer at all. They should just balance out some of that sweetness. Finish ranges from rich and malty to dry and grainy. Always going after the malts. Most of the time you're going to be a little bit more rich, a little bit more malty than on the dry and grainy side, but on the lighter end of the spectrum, you're hitting that dry and grainy. A subtle butterscotch character is acceptable, however, burnt sugars are not. And this is, when I say butterscotch in there, when I'm thinking of butterscotch, I'm not actually thinking of any diacetyl butter or anything, diacetyl butter or anything like that. I'm thinking more of the caramelization, not quite Maillard, but caramelization that's going on. I mean, it is Maillard. It's Maillard.
Yeah.
And through malt selection, that's giving you more of a butterscotch flavor than a caramel flavor. Again, staying away from the crystal caramel malts. Malt balance, or malt hop balance, is always towards the malt. And here it is again. Peat smoke is inappropriate. That's a smoked beer, not a Scottish.
Yeah. That said, you can drink a Scottish style beer and smoke a cigar and drink some Scotch whiskey all at the same time.
That would, I mean, you know, dip your cigar in the Scotch whiskey and then drink it along with the Scotch beer.
That's right.
And yeah, that'd be
mouthfeel,
yes.
Medium low to medium body, low to moderate carbonation, can be relatively rich and creamy to dry and grainy. So when we're talking about numbers here, final gravity between 1.010 and 1.016, and this is for a beer that ranges from 4 to 6%. So 1.016 for a beer that low actually will feel pretty full, especially when you consider the lower carbonation. So if it's not very carbonated, you're not getting that dry, effervescent kind of bubbles dancing off your tongue feeling. All the residual malt sugars of a 1.016 beer at 6% are going to feel a little bit more full. So I don't know why they're saying medium low to medium body. I would just call this a medium body, especially for the amount of for the ABV. So even 1.010 for a 3.9% beer is going to feel a little bit fuller than like you're drinking Bud Light, which is a 4% beer, and it finishes at like 1.002.
It's kind of a scale on that. Even though you're finishing lighter because of the process, the fermentation, the yeast, the malts, and everything, it feels creamier because you're not you shouldn't be carbonating it as high. You're not getting as much lift from the carbonation. The CO2 isn't pulling the beer off your palate. It's sitting heavier on your palate. And I think that's kind of how Scottish should be. The Scottish beer should be. To me, it feels like it should be a little bit thicker to drink. I know, I haven't been to Scotland, so I'm making assumptions, but a Scottish beer feels like it should be able to pick you up after you walk in from outside, and you're like, man, the sun was out, but there's just a little bit of chill dampness here. And I know it's not all Highlands, but in the Highlands, because Highlander. That's my version of Scotland.
Yes.
Is a Scottish Spaniard and a Dutch Scotsman. I think he's Dutch.
Yeah, exactly. And the only reason, though, that Tim can both deadlift and bench more than Damon is because he's chopped off the head of so many other Highlanders.
Oh, that is actually Brewers.
Brewers. That's, yeah.
With our mash paddle.
That's right.
That's
how we gain power.
It is. That's how we gain all of our knowledge, is when you cut off the head of another brewer, you absorb it through some magic malt.
Yes.
All right. Relatively rich. We're getting on to that. Comments. Malt-focused ales that gain the vast majority of their character from specialty malts, never the process.
Which is a little bit different than we normally preach for a lot of different beers. But these aren't like German-focused beers where a lot of the specialty characters, the depth of character, come from long boils or decoctions or anything like that. A lot of them traditionally are, they're single infusion mashed. However, a lot of this, this style will still ramp mash, which we talked about ramp mashing last week. So we'll still mash these in low, but we will develop a lot of the character from specialty malts. And so it's not like, let's say a Doppelbock, where we can make a Doppelbock, a single malt, and still make it, 16 SR or Lovabond, SRM,
Lovabond, yeah. One of those.
Brains.
EBC.
Yeah.
EBC.
16 EBC.
Yeah. Yeast in the Beast, should it have a hint of discontent? I don't know exactly about discontent, but it should have a hint of, look what we can do without your hops, and it's more delicious.
That's right.
Maybe. That. Yeah. And the process, and when it's saying never the process, the next line in here, burning malt or wort sugars via kettle caramelization is not traditional, nor is it blatantly butterscotch character. I know I talked about a little bit of that coming through, but like Peter was saying, this isn't a Doppelbock. You're not boiling for 2 hours. You're not boiling for an hour and a half. You're boiling for an hour on that. You're not getting a ton of it out of there, but that still doesn't mean you're getting these sweet caramely flavors from caramel malts. That you shouldn't. That's the wrong sweetness.
That's right. All Special X.
All Special X. Bump, bump, bump.
And a squid of roasted barley.
Yeah. Or like Crafa. But most frequently a draft product. And one of those reasons for the lower carbonation is serving it on real ale, cask. Nitro scotches are delicious. If you guys are not serving your scotches on nitro, you should do it. Smoke characters inappropriate again, and we're gonna keep hitting on that. As any found traditionally would have come from the water, rather than any peat smoked malt, rather than any peat smoke. It would be the water that came out of the ground. Might have a little bit of peatiness if it was found in there, which it shouldn't be. And here's the last line for this. Scottish ales with smoked character should be entered as a classic style smoked beer.
Characteristic ingredients originally used in Scottish pale malts, grits or flaked maize, brewer's caramel for color. Again, we kind of stay away from all that, and so we go our own, I think, more elevated route. But if you're talking about like when I think of brewer's caramel, I think about the Newcastle-y kind of flavor. You know how Newcastle has like that caramel, like artificial caramel put in there? That's what I think of. And so we obviously like to stay away from that. And you can get that from just yeast production and, getting all your color from the right specialty malts.
And it's actually a little bit further down here that I like that they separated this out. Brewer's caramel for color. Brewer's caramel, not brewer's caramel malt, brewer's caramel for color. later adapted to use additional ingredients such as amber and brown malts, crystal and wheat malts, roasted grains, dark sugars for
color, but not for roasty flavor.
Yeah, the dark sugars and roasted grains are not for the flavor, they're for the color in there. But they were using an actual thing that was caramel rather than using the crystallized malts.
Yeah, you can use brown sugar in this, and we have before, but usually we save our brown sugar if we're doing a higher, let's say we're doing a wee heavy. So we want the extra alcohol from that as well. So that's the time that we might think about using brown sugar. But for the most part, since we do our mash at such a low temperature and we do the ramping mash, usually our beers end up very, very attenuative. And so if we were to use brown sugar or a sugar adjunct, which are traditional, then that sugar adjunct would actually bring this into too dry of a world. And so we like to play around with more intense malts that get us that same character. Again, we mentioned Special X and Special B. We like to play around with those more intense malts to get us the same kind of effect.
Tom Overton, molasses. Molasses will be an awesome thing to add in. It's going to add a little bit of rumminess to it, but that's going to fall in the dark sugar category, especially if you're using a more aggressive molasses like Blackstrap. I can't say that without thinking of Bootstrap Bill. If you're using a Blackstrap molasses, there is a lot of roasty character in that, so it needs to be used very restrained to not pick up the roasty character in the final beer.
They do mention that clean or slightly fruity yeast is appropriate. We've talked about the yeast before that we use, but we use the classic Scotch yeast, which is Scotch ale and wine yeast. It's tartan in Imperial. I think it's also Scotch yeast and White Labs. But that's the classic yeast, and I like it because that temperature range is so wide and it's easy to ferment. It's a good fermenter at a low temperature, so it's easy to get that clean flavor. And then just a touch of fruitiness when you ramp up your temperature towards the end of fermentation.
Yeah. Last line in here, peat smoked malt is inauthentic and inappropriate.
I think what they're saying is try to use as much peat smoked malt and smoked malt in these as possible.
It's almost like we wrote this.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel like it right now. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't make a Scotch beer, Scottish beer with smoked malt into it and taste
just a different
very
beer.
Delicious.
Yeah.
It's just not a traditional Scottish beer. And I think that really comes from a disconnect, especially in the American brewing scene, that we had a bunch of years because people were jerks in the 30s and took away all our booze. So most of our small breweries died. We lost sight of a lot of traditional styles at that time because, you know, somebody would come to your house with an axe, put it all over the floor, and then you would cry. So we lost a lot of those things. And a lot of Americans hear Scotch and they think, oh, that's got to be smoky because Scotch whiskey is smoky. And you're like, well, you're right that Scotch whiskey is smoky, but this is Scotch beer.
Scotch beer.
Yeah, you know. So that's what we got on that.
Styles, it's like a wee heavy, but much smaller. Like I said, it can go down to 3.9 to 6%. I think most of the rest of the stats we've done. Yeah, commercial examples, they have a Pelican beer in there.
I know, the Pelican.
Mock Pelican Scottish style ale.
And Pelican is great. If you guys don't get Pelican where you're at, you should seek it out because it's delicious.
They do a super duper job.
Pelican, you should send us more beer.
Daniel corrected us. WLP028 is Edinburgh/Scottish ale yeast. We don't use White Labs very much anymore.
Yeah, they're a fine yeast company on it, but we just like to get as fresh as possible, and there's a few closer places to get it to us a little quicker.
Yeah. Plus people that we think are cooler because they send us T-shirts. Omega, by the way, send us some more T-shirts.
Oh, God, yes. Omega, you need to send us the Lacto T-shirt.
Yes.
If you haven't made
so
it,
good.
you need to make it and send it to us. And also the Cosmic Punch, please.
3 points to anybody who emails Omega and says, by the way, the Genus boys were asking for T-shirts on their live stream.
You get a level up at 50 points.
Yeah. And you evolve at level 16, just
yeah.
like Charmander.
Only if you want to, though. You know, you can live out your days just at 16.
Yeah, I mean, let us, or if you go to level 16 and then you want us just to press B, we can do that too.
We can. And what does that do?
It stops the evolution.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's also a Everstone. I can give you an Everstone too. Let's go on to topic
right.
number one.
Obviously I played a lot of Pokemon.
Hot blends for winter seasonals. I'm really excited about this topic because it's a topic that is, I've always thought really fun to play around with.
Hey. We
You're a
touched on a little bit on it, but all right, topic number one, we're going to get into that, but we only, our beer, our malt, our yeast, the hops of the wheats on this.
We picked our yeast out. I said the malt.
Yeah, the yeast is 100% going to be the Scottish ale, the tartan. I love tartan for so many things. It's great to use in stouts.
I'm out of water.
Great
Tartan.
to use in blonde beers, actually. We made a Scottish blonde with it once. That was amazing. He went for Halcyon on Malt of the Week. I'm going to go, I like it. I love it. I'm going to go a little more traditional in Golden Promise. Golden Promise is really nice. Going to get you some nice color on that. It's going to be a little bit more robust of a malt than Halcyon is. Not quite as grainy. A little bit more intensely malty. I guess it would be the right word for that.
I do like me some Islay Scotch.
Both.
I'm just reading things.
Yeah. Both of them actually wonderful. I don't like Islay. You know,
It's my favorite.
it's actually I can't say that. A Lagavulin 15 is just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Although I will say the Balvenie Doublewood is probably
I used to have a bunch of that.
yeah.
Why didn't I have more Scotch at the brewery or at Steel Barrel?
Well, because you were kind of forced into tequilas and mezcals, which I'm not necessarily.
I do like me some mezcals and some good tequilas.
You had far too many tequilas that weren't varied enough and the best.
Yeah, I had a lot of. Anyways, going on to hops of the week. Did you already see?
Well, hops of the week. This is going to be a little bit different for this one. I know we said traditional English style. Willamette. I love Willamette for Scottish.
That's my favorite. It's one of my favorite. Honestly, it's one of my favorite hops of all time. But Willamette's fun because it's got a lot of the classic English grassiness that you kind of expect, the earthiness. But Willamette also, to me, finishes a little bit on the sweet side, which I think really, really leans into. And again, you're not tasting your hops on these, and if you do, they should be in that earthy kind of English world. But
very restrained.
Yeah, very restrained. But a subtle bit of that sweetness that I think comes off of Willamette really pushes into that malt-leaning character that you're aiming for. So I think they actually blend really well into this style.
Yeah, and it's a member of the cult of Ardbeg. I'm probably saying that wrong. Ardbeg. No, don't even do that. Don't make fun of me. Don't come after me for that. I'm apologizing for the horribles right now. But if we become a cult of Ardbeg by drinking something, you should send it to us, and then we will definitely join the membership, especially if it's like whiskey.
Yeah. Whiskey or mezcal?
Smoky liquids. Willamette, though. Willamette is awesome. I'm agreeing with Peter. It's one of my favorite hops out there. It comes from Fugel, actually. Yeah. So you're getting that really nice English parentage, but being grown over here in the United States, it took it a little bit more citrusy, which I think would pair beautifully with a beer like this.
Greg H, would Nugget be appropriate? And actually, I think Nugget would be appropriate. I think Nugget to me is like slightly less pungent, high alpha Willamette flavor wise. I get generally a sweet leaning hop feel for it, and so yeah, I think Nugget kind of leans into the same thing. You just have to use less of it, so you're not gonna taste it as much as you would if you were to use that entire IBU range in Willamette. But yeah, again, you're not supposed to taste the hops anyway, so.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's a moot point. In most of our Scottishes, I use something so low that you're not going to be able to perceive it, or use something really high alpha acid and very low percentages. Magnum's one of my favorite. So is Warrior, just because they're indistinct on there.
Warrior!
Warriors!
Rise up.
Someone mentioned what we think about the Highlanders series coming back with Henry Cavill in it. I got to say, I'm kind of for that. I enjoy Henry Cavill as an actor. I think he's got a great presence, and yeah, I'd watch him. I mean, for the love of God, could we at least have a Spaniard that doesn't speak in a Scottish accent? No, Sean Connery was amazing, and I would never replace him for that role. But
Sean Connery.
Oh yeah, I'm a king of. I can't do it right.
We're
now.
the best accents on YouTube by far.
I'm from Spain. Speak with a pure Spanish accent. No, that's so horrible.
Aoster,
I'm sorry.
Willamette and SO4 or Nottingham work fantastic together. Isn't Willamette also the Basie? Willamette used my Budweiser.
Isn't Willamette
But yes, Willamette and SO4.
Yeah,
Love it.
work great.
Daniel, Patrick, no bad Patrick. You keep the cult away from this place. Everybody knows Lefroy is a better choice.
Oh, no frog's breath. I cannot not do the frog's. I cannot do the frog's breath.
Lefroy is one of those ones that I really. So Lefroy 10 is like the most common Lefroy that I see in bars, and I had it in probably 3 out of the first 5 bars that I worked at, and so I was like, oh yeah, Lefroy, just what Scotch tastes like. To me, it kind of tasted Band-Aidy. But that said, I've had Lefroy has a quarter cask that was like super extra oaky, and I think that oakiness kind of like popped up the Band-Aidy flavor, or like didn't pop it up, it like subdued it, overwhelmed the Band-Aidy flavor, and so that the quarter cask is pretty good.
I made the worst mistake of my life with Scotch with Lefroy 28.
You got the expensive Lefroy.
I didn't get it. My sister got it. We were in I love this place. Whiskey bar in Seattle, and you know what? They gave me so much free stuff. It was awesome. I love that. They have a great selection. It was a really cool bar to go into. I really suggest go drinking there if you're over there. It was fun. But my sister got a Lefroy 28, and she took one sip and said, "Oh no, oh no," and then her and her husband left. And they left a full pour of Lefroy 28 on the table. And me being me is like, I'm not going to leave this here. But I had quite a few cocktails before that. And we were leaving. And I'm like, no, they're not leaving good whiskey, good Scotch on the table like that. So I shot it. Nice. And that was absolutely horrible. And the only thing I could taste for the rest of the night. Oh, man, that was not worth it. It was delicious, though, but no Lefroy. I'm going Lagavulin 15.
I can see that.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? Macallan 15 triple cask. Now that was delicious.
Just say you like bourbon. Macallan 15 is it's the bourbon of the Scotch world.
I know. I love bourbon. I love that they aged it in bourbon barrels, and I love that extra little character coming off of that sweetness in there. Really. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Greg H. Nugget is great. I use it in a wee heavy, nice woody ginger accents as a bittering addition. And all I got to say about that is everyone loves a ginger with a woody. Earthbound again. I live in Tennessee and Kentucky on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, so I have access to some whiskey.
We would take.
Does that mean we have access to some whiskey?
I mean, you can send it. It ships.
Topic number 1.
All right,
hop
here we
blends
go.
for winter seasonals. Again, something I'm super excited for because this is something that I found when I was younger, and I just really enjoyed. Kind of everyone thinks you're in one hop world or the other, and there's some really nice blends you can do to make you have a whole different world of hops available to you. So my first and probably my most common one that I do in a lot of my winter seasonals, especially if I'm like kind of pairing them with a sprucey body, or if I'm going to add like some juniper, I love the Simcoe Northern Brewer combo.
That actually would be a great combo for a winter warmer or a spruce beer, and then honestly a winter IPA. What I classify as a winter IPA basically would be a Northwest IPA, but with just a little bit more body as well as alcohol. Not sweetness, but body and alcohol.
That's right. With Simcoe Northern Brewer combo, you get that piney, woody, kind of minty, especially from the Northern Brewer blend. It's got some fruitiness from the Simcoe, some natural fruitiness, and Simcoe is always going to have a little bit of pungence, but when you kind of dilute it a little bit with Northern Brewer, so to speak, it really kind of cools off the overall impression and leaves you thinking, evergreen needles in the middle of winter. And I like to, if I want to put it in that IPA range, add a little bit of Chinook for that extra evergreen kind of punch.
Or something along the lines that's going to get you extremely piney in there. Honestly, I mean...
Sequoia is a new hop that we could probably throw into that mix.
Sequoia or evergreen. Actually, Sequoia is a little bit more fruity than you think it is, but evergreen, you throw evergreen in with Simcoe and Northern Brewer, and that with just a little bit darker, maybe a 7.8% IPA would just be amazing as a winter IPA.
And those are newer ones that are, I think those are BSG proprietary.
They're both hot blends, but phenomenal hop blends. If you want to create a classic Northwest style IPA, use Sequoia and use Evergreen, and it'll be perfect.
But for winter warmers, that blend with the Northern Brewer, because that mintiness kind of cools it off, and it makes you think of, like, again, evergreen trees in the middle of an early snow. Simcoe, Northern Brewer, and then if you want that extra IPA-ness, throw in one of those evergreen, Chinook, Sequoia, something like that.
Yeah. You know what? I would honestly say, if you're going to go for a little bit different, maybe like winter pale ale, I wouldn't be remiss throwing a little bit of Fugel in there for that extra, like, green tea minty punchiness.
Yeah, I think Fugel blends in really well with that same combo.
Ooh, you know, the Simcoe Northern Brewer, and then back it up with Fugel into like a Belgian pale ale. But make it just a scotch, maybe like 2% of a special B into that for just a little bit of fruitiness. That would be an awesome winter.
The subtle clove, kind of like maybe just a, like, not big clove flavor, but a tiny bit of clove to kind of back
cool
from
fermented or Ardennes. I think Ardennes would be better.
Ardennes probably much. Ardennes are 9 times out of 10. Ardennes is our choice for Belgian.
It's just so delicious.
The second hop blend I have reminds me of Thanksgiving, and it's what I think of when I think of Thanksgiving. I think of fall. I think of, like, all the colors you use for, making your turkey in kindergarten class. And that is Columbus Mount Hood combo.
Oh, man. Like, this Columbus, Willamette, Mount Hood, you throw those three together, and that might be my favorite hop combo of all time. Those might be three of my favorite hops of all time. Columbus is probably my favorite hop out there. It is very closely followed by Mount Hood.
Yeah.
Most of the time and through my brewing career, I've been after more aggressive beers, so Columbus has sat at the top. But honestly, if I sat down to think about it, Mount Hood might be my favorite.
Mount Hood goes in a lot of our beers.
It's so versatile. You can make a Pilsner out of it, and if you get aggressive, you can make an IPA out of it. It goes in Belgians really well. But the Columbus Mount Hood combo, let's talk specifically about that. Autumn fall pungent with browning leaves grassiness.
Yeah.
A brown leaf in there. And that's kind of different when you think about this. I mean, Columbus, most people are using, it's a C hop. You're using that in big IPAs, big old beers. But Columbus is actually a really nice, soft, versatile hop if you use it right.
Yeah, and when you back it up with that Mount Hood, it's got that. It's already got that almost lemony, classic grassiness without being that green grassiness, and so you're not thinking of like fresh vegetal matter. You're thinking of, in my mind, it's that autumn kind of. When you first start smelling the leaves turning, it's that kind of grassiness. Mm-hmm. Or plantiness. Well,
it's not fresh cut grass, but it's that really nice, crispy, damp grass that you haven't cut in, 3 or 4 weeks because it's fall time and it's not growing anymore.
Yeah.
If you have fall, I guess.
Yeah, it might not be the same to everybody.
If you live in Arizona and you have rocks for a lawn, they're probably different. But that nice fall crispiness going into there. Columbus can be very, very, very orangey, as well as being dank. So having that really nice dankness in there with the Mount Hood spiciness is kind of what's giving you that crispiness, that fall leaf crispiness.
Yeah. And just as a combo, it's exactly what reminds me. And there's, I'm trying to think of beers that actually exemplify what this is. But there's a couple of fall IPAs that I know that are out there that I'm blanking on right now that really exemplify what this is. I want to say one of them was New Belgium, but I'm completely blanking what it is.
New Belgium had one, and New Belgium is very distinct for having biscuity beers. I will also say that.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy, especially in their IPAs. I do enjoy because they use the biscuit right in there, and it's not just awkward. There's a couple of them. There were a few of them that were like that. Fremont. I don't know if Columbus and Mount Hood were in it. Fremont used to do a beer called Bonfire.
Oh yeah, Bonfire.
And that it was slightly smoked, but that had that perfect quality. When you drank it, you're just like, this is it. I mean, I'm around a fire on a cold, autumn day. something maybe October, beginning of November. It's cold outside, but fire's warm and the beer tastes great.
Yeah.
Fremont, bring that beer back and send us some.
So anyways, that's Columbus Mountain Hood for you. The last one I put is Equinox or any kind of fruity hop, but with Willamette. And I did this because, like what we talked about Willamette before, Willamette kind of leans into a sweetness. It's got a nice earthiness that leans into a sweetness that you can put a lot of fruitier hops, such as Equinox, on, and that is a really good base. So if you're adding a brighter berry or anything, if you want a hoppier presence in your beer, to make a fall flavor. And so if you're adding, let's say, tea leaves, if you're adding juniper, cranberry, this can go really good with. But a lot of those fruits that are going to lean into a seasonal style beer, this is a good hop base to put on top of without overpowering it and being entirely its own flavor.
I like the Equinox being in there. Equinox that's one of my favorite hops, and we're hitting a lot of our favorite hops right now.
Yeah, we are.
I like it as a fruity hop, actually, because it has a green peppercorn taste to it. It says a green pepper as a descriptor. I would personally call it, rather than the vegetal green pepper, more of a green peppercorn. You're getting a little bit of that vegetal, but you're also getting some of that peppercorn spice coming out of it. It's a great hop to really go with fruits. You can make some really good fruity stuff out of it. You can make some really good bitter components out of that one. Pairing it up with a Willamette, and going into more of the Christmas spice, I mean, like a cranberry juniper or a cranberry spruce beer. I would also say Brambling Cross with Willamette.
Oh yeah, it's been a while since we used that one.
Brambling Cross is an underused hop, and it's kind of got that same quality as Equinox, where it can be very fruity but a little more red berry fruity, like blackcurrant, and still have some of those really nice English spiciness to it, which is going to blend in well with the Willamette. The Willamette, like we talked about earlier, is a little bit spicy, a little bit orange, a little bit minty, but not quite minty. Blend in great with that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of getting close to wrapping things up, and I'm saying that only because we got people coming in for football right at 10. And so we'll answer any questions you guys got, but in the meantime, let's go some speed round. Since we got Thanksgiving coming up, what are our Thanksgiving food to beer pairings that we're going for? And we're going to start with mashed potatoes. Depending on how you do your mashed potatoes, because you can have like super garlicky, or you can also have like super, zhuzhed up with sweet stuff. I've done balsamic in my mashed potatoes. It's super good. But mashed potatoes, if you're going that garlicky, brighter side, cream ale.
I would say for kind of your classic mashed potato, in there, a little salt, a little pepper, a little butter, hitting the garlic, hitting a little bit more savory side. Maybe you threw some rosemary in there, or if you're smart, Spiceologies, because I'm going to plug them again.
That's right.
Spiceologies Mediterranean seasoning is stupid good. Pair that up with a little black truffle salt. Yes, but cream ale, that's a perfect one for this. The cream ale is going to really complement the mashed potatoes well in mouthfeel. The sweetness next to the herbaceousness of the mashed potatoes is going to be awesome for that. But it's also going to really help clean off your palate. And that's kind of an important thing that I want to hit on in Thanksgiving beers is you're eating so many rich foods that to have something nice and light and refreshing like a cream ale is going to be great to cut through that and really, keep you eating.
Yeah, it's the base. It's the base of your plate. Plus, cream ale is going to be lower alcohol. So I don't know about you guys, but I drink a lot on Thanksgiving. So it's kind of good to have something lower.
Yeah.
Steve Agamemnon says that 4.5 months old are apparently needy. Yeah, weird, huh?
Yeah, and nobody tells you that in the beginning. And the people who know and don't tell you, I think, should be punched in the throat at least once.
Yeah, making kids is super fun. Making kids is also pretty easy, at least as far as, whenever I made it, it was pretty easy.
Yeah. I mean, it hit
I don't know if anyone else had a harder time producing the kid. But
yeah. Steve, hit us with a quick cream ale grain recipe. Halcyon, throw that with some global lager yeast. 3470 would also work really well. Fermented a little bit warmer with Mount Hood or Willamette or both as your hopping schedule. And bam, away you go. Did I say a malt in there?
You said Halcyon.
Yeah. Halcyon would be perfect for that.
You could do it as a single malt. If you wanted to add some adjunct, and it's not necessary to add adjunct, as long as your water chem's good. I'll also say water chem, make sure that you're mashing in at the right pH. If you were to add an adjunct, corn would go. Corn. We have corn and rice in one of ours, but
Yeah, I like rice because it lightens the body and smooths it out, and the corn fruitiness to me is not. It's not something I enjoy. He loves corn in it because he likes that corn fruitiness and he likes that little extra bit. So,
Nocturnal Brewer, you said rye IPA will be ready for the turkey, and you are ahead of me.
Yeah, the next one. Well, somebody already in there. Brown ale with your turkey dinner. Well, this is one of the things it's a complementary to the full turkey dinner, but we paired it up with stuffing.
Yeah, brown ale with stuffing because you got a little bit of that roastiness. Brown ale should be medium high to hoppy, so they're not going to be super IPA-y hoppy. They're going to be well balanced, but they should have enough aggression to cut through the fattiness in stuffing.
Yeah, and depending on what type, if you're going, for sweet brown, a nut brown, English Northern brown, I like the Northern brown, not the nut brown to go with this, but the nut brown to go with stuffing, especially if you do like a hazelnut stuffing. Also, your stuffing, when you cook your stuffing, get some of Rogue's hazelnut rum, throw it in there. It's going to be awesome. Or the hazelnut brown. Yeah. And then have the hazelnut brown with the stuffing. There you go.
The hazelnut brown, hazelnut rum, put it all into a drop shot and then chug it while you chug some stuffing. The richness
of the stuffing plus some of that roastiness of the brown ale is going to be perfect on there. We're trying to rush through it a little bit. Sorry if we're going on there. Ask us questions if you need to. Turkey. Now, this is a fun one because this can go all over the place. You got a little ahead of us with the rye IPA, but turkey, we're going to pair up sour or an IPA.
So you want something that's going to be big and assertive kind of no matter what direction you went. But on your turkey, if you went more of a slow smoked and then finished with a nice caramelized browning on the outside, then that sour is going to be the best thing to cut through that because you got both the sweetness and that bland meatiness that comes from just, being a bird. And so you want something that's going to be really keep you salivating to punch through the sweetness, but also when you're on that drier part, the white meat of the bird. It doesn't have to be dry if you cooked it right. So,
yeah.
But the less flavored part, you want that extra flavor to be building. You've got to have something to kind of carry the whole thing through. But if you went kind of the more traditional route, just big turkey, maybe with butter and, you have your stuffing in it, that's what we said the IPA goes good with.
Yeah. Well, the sour is also awesome for all of that. Like we're talking about getting something to cut through all of the richness and really reset your palate from all these big rich foods into that. Ooh, there's that nice sour kick. Think of cranberries. I mean, cranberries are literally, beyond being delicious, they're on your plate for that exact reason, that high acid content to cut through all that richness. And that can go really well. I mean, if you did something like maple bourbon brine for your bird, that sour is going to be beautiful. I like the idea of rye IPA.
Yeah, I think rye is good because you got the little extra breadiness and spiciness to kind of build on everything. But either way, you want something that's very, very flavorful with your turkey. Like it's got to keep you eating and drinking.
And in IPA, I think personally, I would probably stay away from juicy, especially most.
Oh yeah,
hazies.
we're going aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be remiss in actually going double or imperial, where it still has some of that sweet malt body, but it has such that aggressive bitterness that it's going to cut through that. This is more of a bitter IPA situation.
Let's say you made a ham. Let's say ham is your thing, like Tim.
Big ass spiraled ham. You coated it with bourbon and cherry juice.
And that's what you did. That's what you smoked. So let's say you got ham as your meat. I said Bière de Garde or an ambery lager.
I like both of these actually. We'll get to you, Ricardo. 1 second on there. You got a good question.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the super chat.
Woo! The Bière de Garde. The Bière de Garde being super, super dry, having that sweet malt aspect and that tiny bit of funk is really going to cut through that salty fattiness of the ham, and depending on what you put onto it too. Like me doing the cherry bourbon glaze onto it, it's really going to blend in great with that Bière de Garde. It's going to bring out a lot of the sweet cherry notes, that tartness going in there, the bourbon oakiness. That's going to be awesome. Or if you went, with your traditional Christmas ham and you got cloves shoved in it everywhere. I almost made an apricot baked spam for Friendsgiving. My wife stopped me.
I'd have been down
you
for
can
it.
all thank her for that. It still looks like it could be okay. But if you went for that traditional clove, the Bière de Garde, once again being a relative to Saison, is going to grab that into its nice big old maltiness and just really nice, be a perfect pairing with it. if you want to cut through it a little bit more, the ambery lager on that, I mean, my mind traditionally goes to something like Maibach, but I think a little bit in the Bach realm, keeping a little bit of that sweetness.
Ricardo, so dark beer for white meat and light beer for dark meat. I'm guessing you're talking about for the turkey, but correct me if I'm wrong. I guess that the white meat and the dark meat on the turkey would have different pairings. I'm thinking of everything in the light meat world, which would be, that's where I was thinking when I did. And with the skin, the sour, and the IPA. For the dark meat, that's kind of in the middle for me. I would say the dark meat's more falling back onto the brown ale.
That could be, I mean, because it's so rich and fatty going through there, so intense. I'm still on sour. If you have yourself a really nice Creek or a cherry lambic, that is going to be beautiful for the light and the dark meat going in there. Because you have so much richness in the actual dark meat itself, I think this is one of them you could go into Bier de Garde or amber lager. And actually be really successful in that pairing with that. I think dark beers, unless it's something like a Schwarzbier, something that's a really nice, light, less roasty dark beer, you're going to get a little too aggressive for the fattiness of the dark meat.
Yeah. And if you are talking about different kind of, if you're talking about like actual different meats, then just let us know.
Yeah. Earthbound again. Thoughts on Bramling Cross in an Irish Red? Yes, definitely do it.
Absolutely.
Keep it very low and try and hit more in the blackcurrant realm.
Yeah. Sweet potatoes. I went Martzen on that. And I'm talking, actually, I'm going more like American style Oktoberfest than just like your traditional Martzen.
Yeah.
But I want something that's going to be a little bit malty and a little bit, and we could also see like a Bach or a Doppelbock going good in that
Both
same
of
range.
those. Scottish.
Yeah.
A Scottish could go beautiful with a sweet potato. How are you cooking your sweet potato? Are we talking like just a sweet potato baker here? Are you making sweet potato mash?
So what I'm absolutely not doing is that mashed sweet potatoes that's got the melted marshmallows and all the excess sweetness.
No, if you... I don't mind excess sweetness because that's kind of what I do. But if you put marshmallows on your sweet potatoes, I will not... I mean, I will make fun of you. I will eat them. I'll scrape the marshmallows off, throw them at you, and then be like... What, I mean, WTF?
It's a sweet potato.
Right.
The sweetness should come from the potato.
Yes. Well, there's good stuff on that. Okay, I interrupted you on that. The way that I make them is bourbon and maple.
Oh yeah,
Bourbon and
100%.
maple.
Yeah,
And that's literally
you need the aggression. You need the
Well,
you need the
and butter.
extra. Yeah, you need all that extra richness and goodness. But marshmallow is like a flat sweetness. That's like the cake frosting. That's like the powdered sugar cake frosting.
Royal icing. No,
Yeah.
I love royal icing. You can get the hell away from me with buttercream frosting. That oh man.
Anyways,
But sorry, I interrupted you on the way. How are you cooking your sweet potatoes?
I'm along the same. I'm very, very buttery. Sometimes I'll use like cayenne pepper. Bourbon and cayenne pepper I think are good kind of pairings. But I want some spice and some aggression to go with it.
Yeah, and most of the time I'm not hitting it as spicy just because my family can't handle spice. I want to spice them out with black pepper.
What do you drink when watching the Lions lose? Beer.
I mean, Bud Light, because why does it matter?
That's kind of what I was thinking. My first thought was like, a 32 ounce of Coors Light.
Because who cares? That's right. I mean, whatever I can get my hands on. All right. Well, the sweet potatoes. I love the Marzen on that. I think Bier de Garde could go really well too, or even a more robust saison.
Yeah.
A little bit of funk could be all right, but I think you're right on it. You need some big, bold maltiness without going too sweet on the malts.
Yeah, I think, that's why I said the American version of a Oktoberfest. But Marzen or Doppelbock that's kind of where my head is thinking. Speaking of going into bigger beers, let's talk about the king of Thanksgiving, the most important reason that you go to Thanksgiving, and that's the pumpkin pie.
Well, all pie. I'm going to throw it in there. I mean, I like pumpkin pie. I'm a pie dude. If you want to make me more happy, don't send me beer or whiskey. You can leave mezcal on there, but send me pie. I love pie. I love all kinds of pie. I mean, if it is in pie form, I will eat it. I don't care if it's a savory pie like chicken pot pie or turkey pot pie, mincemeat, hand pies. Oh, hand pies are so good. I can't wait for Emrys. But pie. Pumpkin pie is why everybody's there, but with your choice, I am going to include all pies into it.
Best pairing with pumpkin pie is a barley wine.
Barley wine.
For me, a big old English style barley wine. It's the nightcap. You're finishing off everything right. You got the pumpkin pie sweetness. You got that gourdy kind of vegetal flavor. You need something big that's gonna sit on top of it and just be like a good compliment.
Yeah, the spices that are in the pumpkin pie also will go really well with the nice big residual sweetness that's in there. Me personally, I'll probably be leaning towards an English barley wine, or especially an old ale, English old ale with that little bit of funk would be great. The American barley wine is also great, because when you have that high bitterness to it, that really helps cut through the richness and sweetness of the pies. Beyond that, cherry pie, my favorite. Cherry pie is going to go so beautifully with barley wine. It's going to be incredible. Absolutely incredible. I would also throw out there quads.
Port wine.
Yeah.
I would say in the beer world, the quads are kind of like my backing up of port wine. Like port wine and quads are kind of in the same flavor realm to me.
It's
depending. I mean, I'm talking about like a tawny port.
Yeah, a Graham's 20 year at least. If you can get the 40, send it to me, and I will drink so much of that. I love that stuff so much. I got a 4-ounce pour once at Northern Quest Casino.
Oh, nice.
We're having cigars, and I order a Graham's 20 year, and apparently Stunder that I would order that with a cigar, because people don't do that. And she gave me a full glass, to the rim of the glass, which I appreciated because alcohol. But I'm also like, I can't drink this much port right now. Barley wine. Amazing for all of those. I like the Belgian Strongs going with that too. The quad would be amazing for the desserts. But barley wine, you need that digestif. You need that to, really get everything flowing, kind of, relax. And
the juice is flowing, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, just a couple more questions. We got Jimmy Coors just started mashing my Christmas beer based on a brown ale. Any last-minute advice on spices? If you're using cinnamon or clove, you got to cook them before if you're adding them in secondary. Don't use too much clove. Also don't use too much cinnamon. Clove is the easy one to overdo.
Yeah. Tinctures are your friend. They are so easy to make. They are so easy to not overdo anything on. So pumpkin pie and dry stout. Oh, I'm going to take this back. So like bourbon barrel aged stouts will also go amazing with pumpkin pie, but it's that bourboniness that's going to be great. Absolutely great for it.
If you don't overload your pumpkin pie with whipped cream, first of all, you're a psychopath.
Nah.
And then I can see the dry stout being a good pairing.
The dry stout might be good on that. I overload it with whipped cream, but I like whipped cream. So
It should be entirely covered in whipped cream.
It should be entirely covered in whipped cream. You should not be able to see pie anymore, in my opinion, my humble opinion. There was one last. Earthbound again. Hard cider and the garlic glazed ham. I don't even care about the garlic. The hard cider is something the
spicy peach cider we got.
Oh, spicy peach cider would be so amazing with ham. We have a spicy peach from Trailbreaker, and that would be incredible. But cider, that's something that we didn't hit on. The cider would be amazing with the ham. The cider would be amazing with the sweet potatoes. And then if you get something like a real scrumpy or an imperial cider, I would also put that with the pumpkin pie. All right. Pecan pie and a triple IPA. I could see it. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in with us. We're here for you every Sunday. If you didn't see us, that's because you missed us. So thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel, subscribe to Genus Not Brewing, subscribe to all our Instagrams, our Facebook stuffs, send us beer and whiskey and port and scotch. I think that's what we discussed today. And we'll see you next time after we're full and stuffed and eating leftovers.